Pain was the first sensation that greeted Lyra as consciousness slowly returned to her. Sharp, pulsating pain that radiated from her abdomen and spread throughout her entire body. She tried to open her eyes, but the sterile white light above was blinding, forcing her to squint as her vision gradually adjusted. The steady beeping of medical equipment surrounded her, each sound precise and unfamiliar. This wasn't Xylo's technology. The tones were all wrong, higher-pitched, more mechanical than the organic, resonant monitoring systems her people used. As her senses sharpened, Lyra became increasingly certain that she was somewhere dangerous, somewhere she shouldn't be. The last thing she remembered was the ambush. Her elite squadron had been patrolling the outer boundary of the Koresh Nebula when the Terran Federation ships appeared from seemingly nowhere. The ensuing battle had been brief and brutal. One by one, her comrades had fallen. Commander Vek's ship had been the first to explode, followed by the younger warriors, Nira and Taliax. She recalled seeing their vessels torn apart by plasma fire, the communication channels filled with final battle cries before going silent. Her own ship had been critically damaged, systems failing, hull integrity compromised. With her weapons depleted and engines dead, Lyra had closed her eyes, preparing for the honorable death that awaited all Xylo's warriors. She remembered whispering the ancient death prayer, felt the coldness of space beginning to seep through the failing life support systems. And then, nothing. Until now. Until this strange, sterile room that could only be one thing, a Terran medical bay. Panic surged through her as she tried to sit up, only to be restrained by both pain and actual restraints that bound her wrists to the bed. The movement sent a wave of nausea through her, and she couldn't suppress a pained groan that escaped her lips. "I wouldn't recommend trying to move just yet," a male voice said from somewhere to her right. "You had 3 plasma burns that nearly liquefied your internal organs, a fractured spine, and enough radiation poisoning to kill most species twice over." Lyra turned her head sharply toward the voice, ignoring the pain the sudden movement caused. A human male stood at the doorway, tall and imposing in his dark Terran Federation uniform. The silver insignia on his collar marked him as a captain. His face was stern but not unkind, with sharp features, dark eyes, and closely cropped black hair streaked with premature gray at the temples. He carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Where am I?" Lyra demanded, her voice raspy from disuse. "And why am I still alive?" The human approached slowly, maintaining a cautious distance. "You're aboard the TSV Vigilance, a Terran patrol vessel. I'm Captain Kalen Vance, commanding officer." He paused, studying her reaction. "As for why you're alive, that's a more complicated answer." Lyra's silver eyes narrowed, the vertical pupils contracting to thin slits, a physiological response of her species when threatened or angered. "There's nothing complicated about it. Terran protocol is clear: no Xylos prisoners. Your people made that abundantly clear when you bombed our colony on Velar Prime." Something flickered across the captain's face. Was it guilt? Regret? It disappeared too quickly for Lyra to be certain. "Standard protocol, yes," he acknowledged. "But I made a different call." "Why?" The question came out as almost a snarl. Captain Vance moved to a control panel, tapping several commands that caused a holographic display to materialize above Lyra's bed. It showed the debris field where the battle had taken place, the scattered remnants of both Xylos and Terran vessels. "Because something doesn't add up," he said, zooming in on specific energy readings. "Your squadron wasn't the only one decimated that day. We lost contact with the Dauntless, one of our patrol ships that was operating in the same sector. When we arrived to investigate, we found this." The display shifted to show unusual energy signatures embedded in the wreckage. "These aren't standard weapons signatures, not Terran and not Xylos. And these fragments," he highlighted several pieces of debris, "don't match either of our ship designs. They're from a third party using advanced cloaking technology." Lyra stared at the display, her warrior's mind automatically analyzing the tactical implications. You think someone else attacked both our forces and made it look like we destroyed each other? That's my theory, Vance confirmed. And I think it's connected to something bigger. Admiral Thorne has been leading a series of special operations near Xylo's archaeological sites over the past 6 months. Officially, they're security patrols, but the mission parameters are classified beyond my clearance level. The sacred relics, Lyra whispered, understanding dawning on her face. Exactly. I believe Thorne is searching for something specific among your people's artifacts. Something powerful enough to warrant eliminating witnesses, including his own people. His expression hardened. I need your knowledge of Xylo's history, culture, and archaeological sites to understand what we're dealing with and stop whatever Thorne is planning. Lyra let out a bitter laugh that sent sharp pain through her ribs. And why would I help the very people who have been systematically exterminating mine? Your Federation declared us a threat to humanity's expansion and has been driving us to extinction for decades. Because whoever is behind this is a threat to both our peoples, Vance replied evenly. And because it's your only chance for survival and possibly revenge for your fallen comrades. The captain's words hung in the air between them. Lyra knew he was right on both counts. If she refused, she would either be executed according to standard protocol or handed over to Terran intelligence services for interrogation. Neither fate appealed to her. And if there was indeed a third party manipulating both sides of the conflict, they were responsible for the deaths of her squadron, her family, in all but blood. If I agree, she finally said, I have conditions. Vance raised an eyebrow. Name them. Remove these restraints permanently. I won't be treated as a prisoner. I want access to your ship's systems and data on these attacks. And I want your word that if we discover who's responsible, I get to be part of bringing them down. The captain considered her demands silently for a moment. The restraints can come off, but your access to ship systems will be limited and monitored. You'll have full access to all data relating to our investigation. And yes, when we find those responsible, you'll be part of ending their operation. He extended his hand in a human gesture of agreement. Do we have a deal? Lyra looked at the offered hand, then back to Vance's face. Every instinct told her not to trust this human, but survival and vengeance were powerful motivators. She raised her hand as far as the restraint would allow. Release me first, she said coldly. Vance tapped his command bracelet, and the restraints retracted into the medical bed. Lyra rubbed her wrists, then reluctantly extended her hand to shake his. We have a temporary alliance, Captain Vance. Nothing more. That's all I'm asking for, Warrior Lyra. As their hands met, neither could have predicted how this reluctant partnership born of necessity would alter the course of the war and their own lives. The tension on the bridge of the Vigilance was palpable as Captain Vance entered with Lyra at his side. Every crew member stiffened, some reaching instinctively for weapons before catching themselves. The rumors had spread quickly throughout the ship. Their captain had brought aboard a Xylo's warrior, the enemy that had claimed countless human lives throughout the conflict. Return to your stations, Vance ordered firmly. Warrior Lyra is here as a consultant and will be treated with the same respect as any other specialist aboard this vessel. First Officer Maya Chun stepped forward, her expression carefully neutral, but her disapproval evident in her rigid posture. Captain, a word in private? Later, Commander, Vance replied. Navigation, plot a course for the Helios drift. Maximum stealth protocols. Sir, the navigator's confusion was evident. That's dangerously close to the Cygnus patrol route. Exactly. It's also the perfect place to hide while we plan our next move. Vance moved to the Central Command Station, bringing up a tactical display. As of 0600 hours this morning, the Vigilance has been declared rogue by Terran's Central Command. We're now fugitives from both sides of this war. Murmurs of shock rippled through the bridge crew. The official story is that I've committed treason by harboring an enemy combatant, Vance continued calmly. In reality, we're getting too close to something powerful people want to keep hidden. I'm giving each of you one chance to leave. We'll drop you at the Helios mining colony before we go dark. No questions asked, no repercussions. Silence fell over the bridge. Finally, Lieutenant Reza, the weapons officer, spoke up. With all due respect, Captain, I didn't join the service to follow corrupt officials. If you say something's wrong, I believe you. One by one, the other officers voiced similar sentiments, until only First Officer Chun remained silent. Commander, Vance prompted. Chen's eyes flickered to Lyra with undisguised suspicion before returning to her captain. I'll stay to ensure the safety of this crew, sir. But I want my objection to trusting a Xylos officially noted. Noted, Commander, Vance acknowledged. Now, let's get to work. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Lyra observed the dynamics with interest. The loyalty these humans showed their captain was impressive, though clearly strained by her presence. She followed Vance to a tactical station in the corner of the bridge. Your second-in-command doesn't approve of me, she noted quietly. Maya lost her entire family when the Xylos raided New Jakarta colony, Vance explained. She has her reasons. As do I for hating Terrans, Lyra countered. Your forces destroyed 3 of our outer worlds and hunted survivors like sport. Vance's jaw tightened. Those atrocities weren't sanctioned by. Alert! The sensor officer's shout interrupted their exchange. Unidentified vessels approaching from Sector 7. The main view screen shifted to show 3 sleek, black ships appearing seemingly out of nowhere, their design unlike anything in either the Terran or Xylos fleet. Cloaking technology disabled, the officer reported. They're powering weapons systems. Battle stations, Vance commanded. Evasive pattern Delta. The Vigilance lurched as it changed course, barely avoiding the first barrage of energy weapons that sizzled past their hull. Those are the same energy signatures from the ambush site, Lyra observed, studying the tactical display. They found us faster than I expected, Vance muttered. Helm, set course for the Verna asteroid belt. Sir, that's suicide at these speeds, the helmsman protested. It's our only chance, Vance insisted. Do it. As the Vigilance accelerated toward the dense field of asteroids ahead, Lyra moved to stand beside the navigation console. Allow me, she said to the navigator, who looked to Vance for confirmation. The captain nodded, and the crewman reluctantly relinquished his seat. Lyra's fingers danced over the unfamiliar controls with surprising dexterity. Xylos raiders have used the Verna belt as a hiding place for generations, she explained as she worked. There's a gravitational anomaly in the eastern quadrant that creates a relatively stable pathway through the field if you know exactly where to enter. She input a series of complex navigational calculations, then looked up at Vance. Your helmsman needs to follow these coordinates precisely. One deviation of more than 3 degrees will result in collision. Vance relayed the instructions, and the Vigilance plunged into the asteroid belt, weaving between massive rocks with mere meters to spare. Behind them, one of the pursuing ships attempted to follow but miscalculated, crashing into an asteroid and erupting in a ball of flame. The other 2 broke off their pursuit, unwilling to risk the same fate. Pathway stable, the helmsman reported, sweat beading on his forehead as he maintained the precise course. We're clear of immediate danger, sir. A scattered applause broke out on the bridge, quickly silenced by Commander Chen's stern glare. Well done, Vance said to Lyra as she vacated the navigation station. You just saved this ship. I saved myself as well, she reminded him. Those ships want me dead as much as you. Vance nodded. What can you tell me about the design? Have you seen anything like it before? Lyra frowned. No, but there were rumors, stories about a shadow organization that operated beyond the boundaries of either of our territories. The Xylos High Command dismissed them as myths. The Shadow Syndicate, Vance said grimly. I've heard similar whispers among higher-ranking officers. A group of mercenaries and scientists operating with technology far beyond standard military grade. If they're real, and working with your Admiral Thorne. Lyra let the implication hang in the air. Then we need to find out what they're after before they find us again, Vance finished. He turned to his communications officer. Send a coded message to Professor Lindholm at Galileo Station. Use the personal cipher I gave you last year. Yes, sir. Vance gestured for Lyra to follow him off the bridge. Professor Lindholm is an expert in xenoarchaeology, who's been critical of the Federation's handling of alien artifacts. If anyone can help us understand what the Syndicate and Thorn are after, it's him. As they walked through the corridors, Lyra noticed the wary glances and wide berth given to her by the crew. She was used to being feared, but there was something different about being the lone enemy on a ship full of humans. "Your crew fears me," she observed. "Can you blame them?" Vance asked. "Most of them have only seen Xylos through weapon scopes. As I've only seen humans while they destroyed my worlds," Lyra countered. Vance stopped walking and turned to face her directly. "This war has been brutal on both sides, Lyra. Neither of us comes to this alliance with clean hands. My hands are stained defending my people," she said fiercely. "What's your excuse?" "I followed orders I believed were necessary," he replied, maintaining eye contact, "until I saw evidence that made me question everything. That's why we're here now." Something in his unwavering gaze made Lyra reconsider her assessment of this human captain. He wasn't the mindless soldier she had expected, nor the cruel oppressor Xylos propaganda had depicted. He was something more complex, a man of conviction who was willing to risk everything when those convictions were challenged. Before she could respond, the ship's communications system activated. "Captain, we received a response from Professor Lindholm. It's encrypted for your eyes only. We'll continue this discussion later," Vance said. "Meet me in the tactical room in 1 hour. We need to plan our next move." As he walked away, Lyra found herself watching his retreating form with a mixture of lingering suspicion and grudging respect. This alliance might be born of necessity, but perhaps there was more to humans, or at least this particular human, than she had been raised to believe. The revelation came 3 days later, as the Vigilance hovered at the edge of an abandoned research outpost in the border zone. What had once been a joint scientific venture between several neutral systems had been mysteriously abandoned 5 years ago, its purpose and findings classified by both Terran and Xylos authorities. "This is it," Professor Lindholm's message had said. "The last known location of Expedition Helios before they disappeared. If you want to understand what Thorn is after, start here." Vance led a small team consisting of himself, Lyra, Lieutenant Reza, and Dr. Ellis, the ship's chief medical officer. They moved through the derelict station in tactical formation, weapons ready. "Life support systems are functional but minimal," Dr. Ellis reported, checking her scanner. "No life signs detected." The station was eerily silent, emergency lights casting long shadows down the corridors. Abandoned personal items lay scattered throughout. A coffee mug still half full of a long-dried liquid. A family photo left on a console, a jacket hanging on the back of a chair, as if its owner had just stepped away momentarily. "It's like everyone just vanished," Reza muttered. "Or were made to vanish," Lyra added grimly. They reached the central research lab, a large circular room dominated by a sophisticated analysis platform in the center. Vance used his override codes to access the main computer. "Most of the data has been wiped," he reported, scanning through the fragmented files. "But there are still traces in the backup systems." As he worked, Lyra explored the lab, her attention drawn to a containment unit in the far corner. Inside was a small, crystalline object no larger than her palm. Despite its size, it seemed to pull at her, an almost imperceptible resonance that she felt rather than heard. "Captain," she called, her voice strangely tight. "You need to see this." Vance joined her at the containment unit, studying the object inside. "What is it?" "A Nexus shard," Lyra explained, a hint of reverence in her tone. "A fragment of what my people call the ancestral resonance. According to our ancient texts, these shards contain the echoes of the first ones, the beings who gave the Xylos our consciousness and purpose." "A religious artifact?" Vance sounded skeptical. Lyra shook her head. "Not just religious. The shards contain technology so advanced that most of it is indistinguishable from mysticism to both our peoples. They're said to be able to manipulate energy, matter, even space-time itself under the right conditions." "Is that why Thorn wants them?" "If he's trying to weaponize them, yes." Lyra's expression darkened. "But the shards were never meant to be used that way. They respond to Xylos biology specifically, attempting to force them to work with human technology could be catastrophic. A sudden noise from the corridor silenced their conversation. Lieutenant Reza signaled that someone or something was approaching. The team took defensive positions, weapons trained on the entrance. A tall, emaciated figure stumbled through the doorway, wearing the tattered remains of a science officer's uniform. His skin was pale and stretched tight over his bones, eyes sunken but alert. "Don't shoot," he croaked, raising skeletal hands. "Please." Dr. Ellis was the first to lower her weapon, medical instincts taking over as she moved to the man's side. "I'm Dr. Ellis from the TSV Vigilance. Can you tell us your name?" "Matsuo," the man whispered. "Dr. Hayato Matsuo, xenobiology specialist. I've been hiding in the maintenance tunnels since they came." "Who came, Dr. Matsuo?" Vance asked, still maintaining a cautious distance. "Men in black armor. Not Federation standard. They took the artifact we've been studying and everyone who had directly worked with it." His haunted eyes darted nervously around the room. "I was in decontamination when they arrived. I've been hiding ever since, surviving on emergency rations." Dr. Ellis scanned him with her medical device. "Severe malnutrition, dehydration, but no immediate, life-threatening conditions. He needs proper medical care, Captain." "We'll take him back to the ship," Vance decided. "Dr. Matsuo, what were you studying here? Was it this?" He gestured to the Nexus shard. The scientist's eyes widened in recognition. No, that's just a fragment. The real discovery was much larger, a complete Nexus core. We were studying its energy output when Admiral Thorne classified the entire project." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They were trying to synchronize it with human neurological patterns. It didn't work. The subjects couldn't handle the connection. But Thorne wouldn't stop the experiments." "Synchronize?" Lyra asked sharply. "What do you mean?" "The artifacts respond to thought patterns, but only Xylo's patterns," Matsuo explained, his words coming faster now. "Thorne wanted to find a way to make them respond to human commands. The Syndicate promised him they had a solution, a way to modify human brain chemistry to mimic Xylo's neural pathways." "At what cost?" Vance pressed. Matsuo's eyes filled with tears. "Most subjects died within hours. Those that survived longer changed, became something else. Not human anymore, but not Xylo's either." He clutched at Vance's arm with surprising strength. "You can't let them succeed. The artifacts weren't meant to be controlled that way. The power they could unleash." A sudden explosion rocked the station, sending debris cascading from the ceiling. "We've got company," Reza reported, checking the perimeter sensors on his wrist device. "Multiple hostiles boarding from the north airlock." "Get the shard," Vance ordered Lyra. "We're taking it and Dr. Matsuo back to the ship." He activated his comm link. "Commander Chun, prepare for emergency extraction. Have medical standing by." As Lyra carefully removed the Nexus shard from its containment unit, a strange calm washed over her. The resonance intensified as the crystal made contact with her skin, sending a pleasant vibration up her arm and into her chest. For a brief moment, she could almost hear distant voices speaking in the ancient Xylo's tongue. "Lyra!" Vance's sharp call broke through her trance. "We need to move." The extraction was chaotic, a running firefight through the station's corridors as black-armored figures pursued them. The soldiers moved with inhuman speed and precision, their faces hidden behind opaque helmets. When one was hit by Lieutenant Reza's plasma rifle, it stumbled but didn't fall, continuing to advance despite what should have been a fatal wound. "They're augmented," Reza shouted as they ran. "Standard weapons aren't stopping them." They barely made it to the extraction point where a shuttle from the Vigilance waited. As they lifted off, Lyra looked back to see more of the black-armored soldiers emerging from a sleek, predatory ship that had docked at the station. One figure stood apart from the others, taller, with ornate armor that gleamed with a faint purple light. Though she couldn't see its face, Lyra felt its gaze lock onto her, a chill running down her spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. Back aboard the Vigilance, Dr. Matsuo was rushed to medical while Vance called an emergency briefing in the tactical room. Lyra placed the Nexus shard in a secure containment field at the center of the table, where it glimmered with an inner light that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. We now have confirmation that Admiral Thorne is working with the Shadow Syndicate to weaponize Xylo's artifacts, Vance began. Dr. Matsuo's testimony also suggests they're conducting illegal experiments on both humans and captured Xylos. Based on the data fragments we recovered, they've established a primary research facility on Erebus, Lieutenant Reza added, bringing up a holographic display of a barren, cratered moon. It's an old mining colony that was officially decommissioned years ago. Heavily fortified, Commander Chen noted, studying the schematics. Multiple layers of automated defense systems, a garrison of at least 100 elite soldiers, and atmospheric conditions that make long-range scanning nearly impossible. We can't attack directly, Vance acknowledged. We need a way in that bypasses their external defenses. All eyes turned to Lyra, who had been silent, her attention focused on the Nexus shard. She looked up, meeting Vance's gaze. I might know a way, she said. But first, I need to confirm something. She nodded toward the Nexus shard. I need to commune with this fragment. Commune? Chen repeated skeptically. What does that mean exactly? The shards contain knowledge, memories of the first ones, Lyra explained. Xylos who are properly trained can access this knowledge through direct mental contact. I was a temple guardian before I became a warrior. I have the training. Vance studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Do it, Captain, Chun protested. We have no way of knowing what kind of information she'll access or how she'll use it. We're past the point of half measures, Commander, Vance replied firmly. If we don't trust each other now, we might as well surrender to Thorne directly. Chen's lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval, but she didn't object further. Lyra removed the shard from the containment field, holding it carefully in both hands. She closed her eyes, slowed her breathing, and opened her mind to the resonance within the crystal. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming, a flood of images, sounds, and knowledge rushing into her consciousness like a tidal wave. She saw the creation of the Nexus network, the intended purpose of the shards as conduits for knowledge and healing, and the catastrophic consequences of misusing their power. Most importantly, she saw a hidden pathway to Erebus, an ancient Xylos transport gate hidden beneath the moon's surface, still functional after millennia. When she opened her eyes, the tactical room was silent, all attention fixed on her. The Nexus shard now glowed brightly, illuminating her silver eyes with its bluish light. There's a way into the facility, she announced, but we'll need to move quickly. Thorne is closer to his goal than we realized. As Lyra shared the information she had gleaned from the shard, none of them noticed Commander Chen quietly accessing a secure communication terminal in the corner of the room, sending a heavily encrypted message to an unknown recipient. The betrayal, when it came, was swift and devastating. The Vigilance was approaching the dark side of Erebus, using the moon's magnetic interference to mask their signature, when the ship's systems suddenly began shutting down. We're losing power across all decks, the engineering officer reported frantically. Someone's overridden the main reactor protocols. Vance immediately activated emergency protocols. Locked down all critical systems, security teams to engineering and the reactor core. But it was too late. The ship lurched to a complete stop, emergency lighting casting eerie red shadows across the bridge as backup power engaged. Captain, the communications officer called, voice tight with alarm. We're being hailed by Admiral Thorne. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Thorne, a tall, imposing man with steel-gray hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to hold no humanity. Captain Vance, he greeted with a thin smile. I must commend your persistence, though I can't say much for your judgment. Harboring an enemy combatant? Stealing classified research materials? Your list of treasonous actions is quite impressive. The only treason here is yours, Admiral, Vance responded, standing tall despite the dire situation. Illegal experimentation on sentient beings, conspiring with the Shadow Syndicate, weapons development outside Federation oversight. Shall I continue? Thorne's smile didn't waver. Bold accusations from a man in your position. But I'm afraid you've misunderstood the situation entirely. Everything I've done has been for the preservation of humanity. The Xylos are a dying race, Captain. Their technology, their knowledge, it belongs to the species with the strength to claim it. That's the natural order. There's nothing natural about what you're doing, Vance argued. The artifacts were never meant to be weapons. Tools become weapons in the right hands, Thorne replied dismissively. And speaking of right hands, I should thank your first officer for her loyal service. Commander Chun has been my eyes and ears aboard your vessel from the moment you made your unorthodox decision regarding the Xylos warrior. All eyes on the bridge turned to Commander Chun, who stood rigidly at attention, her expression unreadable. I did what was necessary to protect the Federation, she stated flatly. The captain has been compromised by alien influence. Maya, Vance said quietly, disappointment and betrayal evident in his voice. You know what Thorne is doing is wrong. What I know, she replied coldly, is that the Xylos killed my family, and I swore I would do whatever it took to ensure they never threatened humanity again. A commendable attitude, Thorne approved. Now, Captain, I'll make this simple. Surrender your ship, the Xylos prisoner, and the Nexus shard you've acquired. In return, I'll allow your crew to be detained rather than executed for treason. Before Vance could respond, the tactical console beside him exploded in a shower of sparks. Warning alarms blared as the ship's sensors detected new threats. Multiple ships decloaking around us, the tactical officer shouted. Not Federation design. The view screen split to show a fleet of the same black ships they had encountered earlier, now surrounding both the Vigilance and Thorne's command vessel, the Imperious. A new face appeared on the screen, a figure in the same ornate armor Lyra had glimpsed at the research station. The helmet retracted, revealing a woman with pale skin crossed with bioluminescent purple veins, eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. Admiral Thorne, she said, her voice carrying an artificial harmonic that sent chills down the spines of everyone who heard it. You seem to have lost control of the situation. Operative Vex, Thorne replied, visibly unsettled. This is a Federation matter. Your organization was contracted to provide support, not to interfere in military operations. Our arrangement has been modified, Vex stated coldly. The Syndicate no longer requires your oversight. We have what we need, including the final Nexus shard aboard the Vigilance. You can't do this, Thorne blustered. We had an agreement. At being the operative word, Vex replied with a predatory smile. The Shadow Syndicate thanks you for your service, Admiral. It will be noted in the archives of the New Order. The communication cut off abruptly as both the Vigilance and the Imperious were caught in powerful tractor beams, being drawn toward a massive black vessel that had decloaked nearby. In the chaos that followed, Lyra found herself standing next to Vance as the bridge crew frantically tried to restore power and break free of the tractor beam. This was never about weapons, was it? She asked quietly, the truth dawning on her from the knowledge the shard had shared. The Syndicate is trying to use the Nexus network for something else entirely. Vance nodded grimly. Dr. Matsuo told me before we entered orbit. The Syndicate believes the complete network can open a gateway to another dimension. One they think contains beings of immense power that can be controlled or bargained with. They're fools, Lyra said, horror evident in her voice. The gateway exists, but what lies beyond it was sealed away by the first ones for a reason. If it's opened, a massive explosion rocked the ship, cutting off her words. Emergency bulkheads slammed down across various sections of the Vigilance as hull breaches were detected. Boarding parties on decks 3, 5, and 7, security reported. They're fighting their way to the bridge. Commander Chin suddenly moved, drawing her sidearm and aiming it at Vance. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Kalen, she said, using his first name for the first time since the crisis began. Surrender the Xylos and the shard. Maya, listen to me, Vance pleaded. If the Syndicate succeeds, there won't be a Federation left to defend. They're not just after control of our space. They want to unleash something that could destroy everything. Uncertainty flickered in Chen's eyes, her weapon wavering slightly. In that moment of hesitation, Lyra moved with the lightning reflexes of her species, disarming Chun and pinning her against the bulkhead. "Your hatred has blinded you to the real threat," she hissed. "My people have been fighting the Syndicate's influence for generations. The very reason we were so protective of our sacred sites that your Federation thought we were being territorial." Vance quickly took command of the situation. "Lock Commander Chun in the brig," he ordered security. "Then implement emergency protocol Omega-7. We're scuttling the ship." Gasps of shock echoed around the bridge. "Sir, that's—" the tactical officer began. "Our only option," Vance finished firmly. "Set the self-destruct sequence for 15 minutes. Have enough time to get to the escape shuttles and make it to the surface of Erebus." He turned to Lyra. "Can you still access the transport gate you mentioned?" "Yes, if we can reach the coordinates I saw in the Shard's memories," she confirmed. "Then that's our plan. We get to the surface, access the gate, infiltrate the facility, and stop whatever ritual or technology the Syndicate is using to open the dimensional gateway." Vance addressed the entire bridge crew. "I won't order any of you to come with us. This mission goes beyond Federation protocols and will likely be a one-way trip. Anyone who wishes to take their chances with the regular escape pods is free to do so." To Lyra's surprise, not a single member of the bridge crew moved toward the exits. "We're with you, Captain," Lieutenant Reza said firmly. "All the way." Vance nodded, a flash of pride crossing his features. "Then let's move. Security teams, hold the boarding parties as long as possible. Everyone else, to the assault shuttles." As they raced through the corridors of the dying ship, fighting broke out all around them. The Syndicate forces were unlike any soldiers Lyra had encountered before, part human, part machine, with reflexes and strength that matched or exceeded her own. Their armor seemed to absorb energy weapons, forcing the Vigilance crew to resort to projectile firearms and hand-to-hand combat. In the shuttle bay, they found Dr. Ellis tending to Dr. Matsuo, who was considerably stronger after receiving proper medical care. "The Syndicate is after him specifically," Dr. Ellis explained as they boarded the assault shuttle. "He knows more about the Nexus technology than anyone except perhaps Thorne himself. They won't just scuttle your ship," Matsuo warned as the shuttle's engines powered up. "They'll extract the core and use the explosion to magnify the gateway's opening. It's what they did at the research station. They use catastrophic energy releases to power the initial breach." Vance's expression darkened. "Can we prevent the self-destruct?" "Not remotely," the engineering officer replied. "But if we could reach the main facility before they extract the core, then that's our new objective," Vance decided as the shuttle launched, narrowly avoiding enemy fire as they broke away from the Vigilance. "Reach the facility, stop the ritual, and prevent them from using our own ship against us." The descent to Erebus was harrowing, with Syndicate fighters in hot pursuit. The shuttle's pilot, Lieutenant Kira, displayed exceptional skill, weaving through the moon's treacherous canyon systems and using the magnetic disturbances to throw off their pursuers. They crash-landed 2 kilometers from the coordinates Lyra had provided, the shuttle too damaged for further flight. As they emerged from the wreckage, the harsh environment of Erebus greeted them. Thin, toxic atmosphere that required breathing masks, bitter cold, and a landscape of sharp, volcanic rock that made movement difficult. "The entrance should be within that ridge," Lyra said, pointing to a distant formation. "We have less than 10 minutes before the Vigilance self-destructs." The group moved as quickly as the terrain allowed, reaching the base of the ridge with only minutes to spare. Lyra searched the rock face frantically, her hands running over the surface until she found what she was looking for, a small indentation in the shape of a symbol sacred to the Xylos. She pressed the Nexus shard into it, and the ground rumbled as a hidden doorway revealed itself. Inside now, Vance ordered as the sky behind them lit up with the arrival of more Syndicate ships. They rushed into the ancient passage, a tunnel carved from the moon's bedrock millennia ago, adorned with Xylo's glyphs that glowed faintly in response to Lyra's presence. The doorway sealed behind them just as the first Syndicate soldiers reached their position. "The transport gate is at the end of this passage," Lyra explained as they hurried forward. "It will take us directly into the heart of the facility they built on top of an ancient Xylos temple without realizing what lay beneath." The tunnel opened into a large chamber dominated by a circular platform inscribed with complex geometric patterns. At the center was a depression that perfectly matched the Nexus shard. "This is it," Lyra said. "The gate hasn't been used in thousands of years, but the shard should activate it. How do we know where it will take us?" Reza asked warily. "It's attuned to the other shards," Lyra explained. "It will transport us to the chamber where the Syndicate has gathered them." As she placed the shard in the central depression, a violent tremor shook the chamber. The Vigilance's self-destruct sequence had begun. The geometric patterns on the platform flared to life with brilliant blue energy, swirling around the group. "Stand together," Lyra shouted over the growing hum of power. "Don't move outside the patterns." The energy intensified, enveloping them in a cocoon of light. For a brief, disorienting moment, Lyra felt her consciousness expand beyond her physical form, connecting with a vast network of Nexus energy that spanned galaxies. Then, with a flash and a sensation of being turned inside out, they materialized in a vast chamber deep within the Erebus facility. The scene before them was chaos. In the center of the room, a massive circular device held 5 Nexus shards arranged in a perfect pentagon, energy arcing between them to form a slowly expanding portal of swirling darkness. Around the device, Syndicate scientists and soldiers worked frantically, many of them showing the same mutations as Operative Vex, glowing veins, altered eyes, and an aura of unnatural power. On one side of the chamber, Admiral Thorne was being held at gunpoint by Syndicate guards, his face a mask of rage and fear as he realized how completely he had been betrayed. On the other, a group of Xylos prisoners were secured in containment fields, their life energy being slowly drained to power the stability of the portal. And overseeing it all, standing on a raised platform, was Operative Vex, now wearing an elaborate headdress that connected directly to her neural implants, allowing her to channel and direct the Nexus energy. The arrival of Vance's team went unnoticed for precious seconds, the transport gate having deposited them in a shadowed alcove partially hidden by equipment. Vance used these moments to assess the situation and formulate a plan. "Ellis, Matsuo, free the Xylos prisoners," he whispered. "Reza, Kira, create a diversion on the far side of the chamber. Lyra and I will go for the central device. We need to remove at least one shard to break the Pentagon," Lyra added. "But be careful. The energy is highly unstable. One wrong move could cause a catastrophic release." "On my mark," Vance said, drawing his sidearm. 3, 2, 1 now." The team sprang into action. Reza and Kira opened fire on the far side of the chamber, targeting power conduits and control panels. The resulting explosions created exactly the distraction they needed, drawing most of the Syndicate forces away from the central device. Ellis and Matsuo moved stealthily toward the imprisoned Xylos, using a medical override device to deactivate the containment fields one by one. As each prisoner was freed, they joined the fight, their natural connection to the Nexus energy giving them an advantage against the Syndicate soldiers. Vance and Lyra fought their way toward the central device, their movements unconsciously synchronized after their weeks of working together. Where Vance was precision and control force, Lyra was fluid grace and deadly speed. Together, they cut through the Syndicate guards with ruthless efficiency. As they reached the device, Operative Vex finally noticed their presence. Her augmented eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with rage. "The Xylos warrior and the traitorous captain," she snarled, her voice carrying that same unsettling harmonic. "You're too late. The gateway is already opening." Indeed, the portal at the center of the Pentagon had grown larger, the darkness within it deeper and more absolute. Strange sounds emanated from it, whispers and distant roars that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. What you bringing through? Vance demanded, keeping his weapon trained on Vex as Lyra examined the device, looking for a way to safely extract one of the shards. The future, Vex replied with fervent conviction. The predecessors, beings of pure energy who existed before physical matter. They will remake this flawed universe in their perfect image. They'll consume it, Lyra countered, recognizing the truth from the knowledge the shard had shared with her. They were imprisoned because they see all physical life as an aberration. A necessary cleansing, Vex agreed, her madness now evident in her glowing eyes. The worthy will be ascended, transformed as I have begun to transform. A tremor shook the facility, more violent than before. Dr. Matsuo, who had reached a control terminal, shouted in alarm. They've extracted the Vigilance's core. They're channeling the imminent explosion directly into the portal. How long? Vance called back. 3 minutes at most. Vex laughed, the sound distorted by her implants. When your ship explodes, the gateway will be permanently opened. Nothing can stop it now. Lyra had been studying the device intently, and finally saw what needed to be done. Kalen, she said, using Vance's first name for the first time. I can collapse the portal, but I need direct contact with all 5 shards simultaneously. That kind of energy would kill a human instantly, Vex scoffed. I'm not human, Lyra replied calmly, and I was trained as a temple guardian. My body can channel the energy for a short time, at least. You'll still die, Vance protested, seeing the resolve in her silver eyes. Perhaps, she acknowledged, but it's the only way. Another explosion rocked the chamber as the freed Xylos prisoners, led by Lieutenant Reza, engaged the main force of Syndicate soldiers in fierce combat. Admiral Thorne had somehow broken free in the confusion and was making his way toward Vance and Lyra, a desperate plan of his own clearly in mind. Do what you must, Vance finally said to Lyra, understanding there was no alternative. I'll cover you. As Vex realized what they intended, she screamed in rage and leapt from her platform, her augmented body moving with impossible speed. Vance intercepted her, his combat training barely a match for her enhanced abilities, but enough to keep her occupied. Lyra approached the Pentagon, feeling the energy pulsing through her even before she touched the shards. The whispers from the portal grew more insistent, promising power, knowledge, revenge, everything she might desire. She recognized the temptation for what it was and steeled her mind against it. Thorne reached them, just as Lyra placed her hands on the first 2 shards. Stop, he commanded. Those artifacts belong to the Federation. They belong to no one, Lyra replied, not pausing in her task. The energy began to flow through her arms, illuminating her veins with the same blue light as the shards themselves. Thorne raised his weapon, but before he could fire, one of the freed Xylos prisoners tackled him to the ground. It was an older Xylos, his once powerful frame now, emaciated from captivity, but his eyes burned with the fire of vengeance. For Velar Prime, the old warrior growled as he grappled with Thorne. Lyra touched the 3rd and 4th shards, her body now glowing so brightly that it was difficult to look at her directly. The pain was excruciating, every cell in her body simultaneously burning and freezing as the ancient energy coursed through her. 1 minute until core detonation. Matsuo shouted from across the chamber. Vance was still locked in combat with Vex, his skill and determination compensating for her augmented abilities. He managed to damage one of her neural implants, causing her to screech in pain and momentary confusion. Now, Lyra, he called out. Finish it. With a final surge of will, Lyra placed her hand on the 5th shard. The completed circuit sent a shockwave of energy through the chamber, knocking everyone to the ground. Lyra's body arched as she became a conduit for the full power of the Nexus network, her consciousness expanding to touch the minds of every Xylos who had ever lived, the accumulated wisdom of millennia flowing through her. The portal began to collapse, the darkness receding as the energy was redirected through Lyra and back into the shards themselves. From within the shrinking gateway, something reached out, a tendril of pure darkness, an appendage of one of the predecessors trying to force its way through before the portal closed completely. 30 seconds, Matsuo warned. The old Xylos warrior, still grappling with Thorn, saw the danger. With a final surge of strength, he dragged the Admiral toward the reaching darkness. "For our people," he said to Lyra as he pushed both himself and Thorn into the collapsing portal. The tendrils seized them both, pulling them into the darkness as the portal continued to shrink. Thorn's scream of terror cut off abruptly as he vanished into the void. 10 seconds. Vex, seeing her plans crumbling, broke away from Vance and lunged toward Lyra, determined to stop the collapse. Vance tackled her from behind, both of them crashing into the base of the device. "Lyra, let go," he shouted. "We need to get out of here." But Lyra couldn't release the shards until the portal was completely closed. The energy was consuming her now, her physical form beginning to break down at the molecular level as it channeled power never meant for a single being to contain. With a final surge of will, she focused all her remaining strength on sealing the portal. The gateway collapsed with an implosion of energy, the shockwave knocking everyone to the ground once more. In the same moment, the Vigilance's core detonated. The explosion, no longer channeled into opening the portal, tore through the facility from below, ripping through levels of laboratories and barracks. Vance staggered to his feet, searching frantically for Lyra. He found her crumpled beside the device, the shards now dark and inert around her. Her body was barely recognizable, transformed by the energy into something between flesh and pure light. "Lyra," he whispered, gathering her into his arms. To his amazement, she still breathed, though each inhalation seemed to cost her tremendous effort. "We need to evacuate now," Reza shouted, supporting an injured Dr. Ellis. "This whole moon is coming apart." Around them, the Syndicate forces were in disarray, many killed in the fighting or the initial shockwave. Vex lay motionless near the device, her augmentations sparking and failing as the power that had sustained them dissipated. Vance lifted Lyra gently, carrying her as the surviving members of his team and the freed Xylos prisoners made their way to the surface through maintenance tunnels and emergency exits. Behind them, the facility continued to collapse, the chain reaction from the Vigilance's core spreading outward. They emerged onto the surface of Erebus to find it breaking apart, massive fissures opening in the barren ground as the moon's structural integrity failed. In orbit above, the remaining Syndicate ships were either fleeing or being destroyed as the shockwave reached them. "There!" Matsuo pointed to a small landing pad where several Syndicate shuttles remained. "If we can reach those, we might have a chance." The race to the shuttles was desperate, the ground literally crumbling beneath their feet with each step. They reached the landing pad just as a section of it collapsed, claiming 2 of the freed Xylos prisoners who had been trailing behind. Lieutenant Kira, the Vigilance's pilot, took control of the largest shuttle, quickly powering up its engines as everyone piled aboard. They lifted off just as the landing pad completely gave way, rising through Erebus's deteriorating atmosphere as the moon began to break apart below them. In the passenger compartment, Vance cradled Lyra's transformed body, unsure if she was still truly alive or something else entirely. Her physical form seemed to shift between solid and translucent, the blue energy that had overtaken her pulsing in rhythm with what he assumed was her heartbeat. "What's happening to her?" he asked Dr. Ellis, who was scanning Lyra with a medical device. "I don't know," Ellis admitted. "Her cellular structure is changing, adapting to the energy she channeled. By all rights, she should be dead, but instead she's evolving." One of the freed Xylos prisoners, a female with the markings of a knowledge keeper, approached them. She touched the heart of the Nexus, she explained reverently. "No one has done that and survived since the time of the first ones. If she lives, she will be changed, a bridge between what we were and what we might become." "Will she still be Lyra?" Vance asked, the question revealing more about his feelings than he intended. The knowledge keeper's expression softened. "At her core, yes. The energy transforms, but does not replace. Her memories, her feelings, her essence, these will remain. As if in response to his voice, Lyra's eyes fluttered open. They were no longer silver, but a luminous blue, the same color as the energy that coursed through her. "Kalen," she whispered, her voice carrying the same harmonic quality that Vex had, but without the distortion of madness. "I'm here," he replied, relief flooding through him. "We did it. The portal is closed, the facility destroyed. We stopped them." "Not stopped," she corrected weakly. "Delayed. The Syndicate will try again. The predecessors will always seek a way back. Then we'll stop them again," Vance promised. Together, a faint smile crossed Lyra's transformed features. Together, she agreed, her hand finding his. Where their skin touched, a small spark of blue energy passed between them, creating a brief connection that allowed Vance to feel a fraction of what she was experiencing. The vastness of the Nexus network, the accumulated wisdom of countless generations, and beneath it all, her feelings for him, complex and profound. The shuttle broke free of Erebus's gravitational pull just as the moon finally shattered completely, fragments dispersing into space in a spectacular display of destruction. With the vigilance gone and the Imperius abandoned by Thorn, they were effectively stranded in deep space with limited supplies and no clear destination. "Where to, Captain?" Lieutenant Kira asked from the pilot's seat. Vance looked around at the survivors, his loyal crew members, the freed Xylos prisoners, Dr. Matsuo with his crucial knowledge of the Syndicate's operations, and Lyra, forever changed but still the warrior who had reluctantly joined forces with him weeks ago. "Set course for the neutral zone," he decided. "There are independent colonies there who have no love for either the Federation or the Xylos Imperium. We can find refuge, regroup, and plan our next move." "And what is our next move?" Reza asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Vance met Lyra's luminous gaze, drawing strength from the connection they now shared. "First, we expose the truth about Thorn, the Syndicate, and what really happened in this war. Then we build something new, not a victory for humans or for Xylos, but a future where both our peoples can exist without fear of each other." A worthy goal, the Xylos Knowledge Keeper nodded approvingly. But not an easy one. "The worthiest goals rarely are," Lyra said softly, her strength gradually returning as her body stabilized. "But we've proven that former enemies can become allies, even friends." The unspoken word "more" hung in the air between her and Vance, acknowledged in the way their hands remained clasped, in the subtle blue energy that continued to arc between them. As the shuttle accelerated away from the debris field that had once been Erebus, the survivors looked out at the stars stretching infinitely before them. The war that had defined their lives was not over. In many ways, a new and more complex conflict had just begun. But for the first time, there was hope for something beyond endless battle, beyond the cycle of vengeance and retaliation that had claimed so many lives. Lyra's transformation was physical proof that change was possible, that evolution could arise from the most desperate circumstances. And in the connection that had formed between a human captain and a Xylos warrior, beings who should have been irreconcilable enemies, lay the seed of a different future than either of their peoples had imagined. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger from both the Syndicate and the established powers that would resist change. But as the shuttle vanished into the depths of space, Vance and Lyra faced that uncertainty together, their alliance forged in battle now strengthened by something deeper, a bond that transcended the hatred of their respective species, a shared vision of peace that seemed, for the first time, truly possible. The warrior who had closed her eyes to die had awakened to a new life, and in doing so, awakened possibilities that would reshape the stars themselves.